For every CEO, there are really three top priorities: top line revenues, bottom line profits, and risk. And security is front and center for these three main objectives.
No one is questioning the impact of a breach anymore. It's a disaster every CEO wants to avoid.
You can lose enormous amount of competitive advantage, credibility. If your customers can't trust you with their data, they will not do business with you. You have an immediate impact on the top line.
From a bottom line perspective, organizations already incur a lot of operational overhead just trying to manage and protect their data.
There are so many things that you are doing over and over and over, and if you're not going to automate them, the cost will be enormous.
If you're secure, you're more competitive, more profitable, and more stable. Many of the breaches that we hear about are very similar. First, they either start with somebody who is already on the inside, like a Snowden, or someone that hijacks the credentials of an insider, like in OPM or Target.
Once they are in, it's game over. And the data is all over the place. Unstructured data, files and emails that are the lifeblood of every organization.
In WikiLeaks, Manning, an insider, took confidential cables or emails. And what was taken in Sony? Emails, video files, files containing passwords, more unstructured data. There are, of course, other kinds of data that we need to worry about, but unstructured data is what most organizations have the most of and what they know the least about. And so much of it is sensitive.
And if you can't protect it, you're literally losing your company.
Insiders have access to it just by going to work, and usually they have access to much more than they need. It's just too easy for data to be stolen, and we have to make it harder. Imagine a bank that stores a lot of cash on hand, only they don't keep it all in the safe with security cameras and guards. They keep it all over the bank. So just about every drawer and every desk has a stack of bills in all different denominations. And no one is keeping track of who is moving which bills where and who can open which drawer. So you'd only need to be able to get into the bank, and then you'd have access to all this cash. Of course, this isn't how any bank would store its cash. And this is precisely how most organizations are storing most of their data today. So believe it or not, this sort of worked for a while, and organizations could get away with firewalls and antivirus, but there's so much more data today. And now, with all the remote employees and the devices and the cloud services and the applications, the perimeter doesn't exist in a practical way. And watching the perimeter of the network doesn't do you much good when the attackers are already inside. The first one that comes to mind is a large military organization. They had their own Snowden, an insider that had too much access, stole data without being noticed, and sold it to the enemy.
And they brought us in. And first, immediately, within 2 weeks, you're talking about petabytes of data, we monitored all the estate, all the data that they are storing. And then we started to understand abnormal behaviors. We caught, within less than a year, 30 people that try to steal data.
Another one is ransomware. A customer of ours, a large consulting firm, enabled our detective capabilities and caught and arrested an outbreak of CryptoLocker only hours after they had turned on our alerting. Varonis has thousands of customers. We invited them to participate in a survey recently, and 31% of those that responded said they had discovered malware or insider threats with Varonis. When you're watching the people and how they use data, there's just so much you can see, but you have to be watching. We need a new approach that focuses more on the information assets than the infrastructure that allows us to access those assets. It's one thing to lose a server. It's another to lose your intellectual property or for your CEO's emails to end up in the news.
What they need to do is to protect the company from the inside out. You need to understand your data. You need to analyze it, to understand who is using the data, and also to alert on abuse. The birth of our company started with a lot of machine learning and AI. So we built a recommendation engine. We built the right security policy regarding the data asset, and even if you didn't implement it, we can alert now if anybody deviated from the right security policy configuration.
So think of it like the fraud detection that your credit card company uses, It's very effective in stopping thieves from stealing money. The same analytics can help prevent insiders and outside attackers from stealing important data.
So, you can work for decades and decades and lose so much in one day. And in the short term, and also in the long term, it's very hard to restore. So CEOs understand that this is something that they need to do in order to protect the business and stay in business.